Welcome back to SynAnalyzer videos, video number 3. Today we're going to talk about some new code that I wrote that's going to allow you to plot the results from your Imaris files so that even if you haven't finished SynAnalyzer, you can still at least look at the preliminary results of your surface reconstructions. So to start us off, you want to make sure that you have the most recent code. And to do that, you're going to use the GitHub desktop app. So if you open up the desktop app and you sign in, which you can do, I believe, settings. Yeah. So if you open up the app and then you go to the menu and then settings, this is where you sign in and out of GitHub. So I made a test file just to demonstrate how you sync your repository, and the GitHub desktop app just automatically recognized that there was a new file that had been uploaded to the main repository through the website that I didn't have saved locally. And you can see this is just a test file. And if you ever want to double check whether or not that file, whether or not there are new files that you need to download, you can always go here to fetch origin, and it checks, and it's just like, okay, there's just this one file that you need to add. So then you can go ahead and pull the origin there. And yeah, okay. Sorry, there we go. Okay, so it might look a little bit different on your screen. But either way, what you can always do just to make it easier on yourself. So GitHub, Engineering Joy. If you have problems with syncing your repository that way, you can go to the GitHub repository through the website. And then the files that we're going to be working with today are called 3.0 SynAnalyzer compile data. And so we should be able to save this link locally. Let's see, desktop. Cool. Yeah, Python notebook. So you can download it. And then once you have it downloaded, you can just drag it into your repository manually. So the two files we're working with today are compiling this imaging metadata that we're going to talk about in depth. It's a really small file just to get all of the metadata together so that you can make your plots. And then the next one is the plot the Imaris results. Sorry, it got a little loud in here. Close the door. Okay, so then all right, so let's get started. Yeah, so like I said, these are the two files that you need, and you can download them directly from the website, or you can use the GitHub desktop app to clone or sync your repository. So once we have those files set up, we're going to go ahead and get our SynAnalyzer environment going. Remember that my environment is called something slightly different than yours. Conda activate, and then start Jupyter Lab. 2 words, all lowercase, and the window will pop up. Okay, and so if you don't see the SynAnalyzer repository immediately, you can always use this bar up here to navigate through your documents and to find it. And then, right, so code and SynAnalyzer. And boom. All right, so we are starting with 3.0 SynAnalyzer compile imaging metadata version 2. And the difference between version 1 and 2, and sorry, I should just change that really quick. The difference is that rather than having the metadata sheets organized within each prep, so I'll show you what I mean right now. So you might be familiar with how I normally organize my data so that every time I do an experiment that has an individual prep folder, and then that individual prep folder has a metadata folder, and then there's this imaging metadata sheet within there. Well, let's say you're not me and you don't organize your stuff like this, but you do have these individual prep level metadata sheets. The version 2 of this notebook is set up so that you can put them all into one place within the batch folder. So here I am in my batch folder. Here's the metadata folder within the batch. And then I created a new folder called prep level MD for metadata. And I put each of those individual workbooks in that folder. That's what you need in order to run this code. Um, so then you're just going to walk through each cell. So if you do that, and then you want to update your batch ID, similar to the other videos that we went through. So I'll just show you really quick how you can do that. So it should be copy paste the exact same text here as here. And then the directory is the only one that you might need to change from the file that's uploaded on GitHub is this one here. And then here for your preps, you're just going to want to make sure that the prep numbers, the prep IDs here, match whatever you have in this folder, because that's how it's going to actually call each of them. So we're going to import our packages. Make sure it says idle before we move forward. Then we're going to run the next cell. Should be good. Okay, and then it's going to make, if it doesn't already exist, it's going to make the metadata folder. Great. But mine already exists. And then the compilation process is really fast. It should just happen like immediately. And I'll clear this cell output so you know that it's actually happening. Okay, and so it just did it really quick. And then I can test to see what it did by just typing it in there. And okay, great. So you can see these NANs. That's because I imaged these frequencies, but I haven't done the hair cell reconstructions for those frequencies yet. So that's why there's no value there. Okay, then I'll show you what we just made. So this is the imaging metadata sheet that has all of the images that are within this batch. And you can see the empty values for where those frequencies, I haven't taken them yet. All right, so once you've done that, and you know that your samples metadata sheet is already set up, which yours should be, because I'm pretty sure I did it, then you should be ready to move on to the next step. So that next step is plot Imaris results, 4.0 SynAnalyzer plot Imaris results. And so we're just going to quickly walk through what this code is doing. So if you've followed the videos up until this moment, everything should be set up exactly as you need it to be. So these requirements are just maybe if you wanted to double check them. Okay, so we're going to import our packages. This timestamp is because every time that we make these plots, we are going to save them in a dedicated folder because sometimes you'll make really small tweaks. This is something that just happens a lot with data analysis, is that you'll run the analysis and you'll make your plots. So that's what I'm showing you here, right? So this is a timestamp. And then you'll want to change one small thing and see how it changes everything else, rather than just continually overwriting existing files or making the file names longer. The easiest way to do it is just to have a dedicated folder for each time you run the code. So that was the last time that I ran the code. And now I'm going to get a new timestamp. And then these parameters, all right, so hopefully I remember to go everything that matters. I'm going to give it my best shot because there's actually a lot going on here that you are going to want to tweak and play around with for your own purposes. So the first one is the batch ID. You remember that guy. Same one as over here, right? And then matching the batch ID is your main directory, the path to your main directory. So just make sure that those two match. So whatever it is here is very likely going to be whatever it was in 3.0. Okay, and then the preps that you want to include, that was the same as the last notebook. Now here's where things change a little bit. What frequencies you want to include in the analysis, you're probably only looking at the 32 kilohertz frequency, but I'm looking at 16 and 32. And so you can put whatever number you want here. So, you know, if you're only doing 32, just delete 16 and you're done. Okay. Next is which surfaces you want to include in the analysis. As I pointed out before, I only have presynaptic data right now, so that's the only thing that's here. I left this line of code in here so that you can just delete that hash and then comment out this other line. And so you can say presyn and postsyn because I think that's what you're going to have. Okay, and then the metadata, you shouldn't need to change this. That's kind of like a more general thing that I set up, so don't worry about that right now. Here's the stuff that you probably are going to want to change. So when we make our plots, we're going to be plotting by condition. And how we know what condition to plot or how we want to plot things is going to be determined by whatever you put here. So here I have two levels of conditions, and you have ones that are similar. So for treatment, that's what type of virus I injected the animal with. And then for noise exposure, obviously that's exposed or sham. And then, or sorry, you know what I mean. So for some of your stuff, I think what you might have is genotype instead of treatment. Then the next level is, okay, so this is condition 1 that we're testing. This is condition 2. Condition 1, there's 3 different values that it can have, and that's what I'm putting in this array. The really important thing is that the way that it's written in that array matches the way exact like letter for letter matches what is in the column of condition 1. So here I have treatment, HABCLW, MTAG BFP, or uninjected. And so that's what I'm putting here. Then condition 2, noise exposed. I have either sham or exposed. And again, it matches exactly what's in this column. You might want to double check yours because I might have put yes or no. But as long as what's in this array matches what's in that file, it's all good. All right, and so then the conditions, this is like the total condition. So if it was uninjected and sham exposed, that's one condition. Uninjected and exposed is another condition. And the way that it's written here is the way that I want it to be written on the legend. So this \n, this actually forces the code to put it on a separate line. So that's a little nitty gritty, but don't worry about it. You can put whatever you want there as long as you know what it is and as long as you want to make sure that the orders match. So this is condition 1, and that's uninjected sham. Condition 2, uninjected exposed. Condition 3, control injection sham. Condition 4, control injection exposed, and so on and so forth. All right, so hopefully with some heavy meditation on that actually will make sense. Don't worry about the parameters for plotting unless you have fewer conditions, which I think you will for the Runx 1. So for Runx 1, you're only going to have 4 conditions, right? Because you're going to have genotype, which will either be control or knockout, and then you're going to have noise exposed, sham, or exposed, and so 2 times 2 is going to be 4. And then in that case, you only want 4 of these colors. So I would say for simplicity's sake, for rungs 1, just delete those last two. For Netrin, you really only have two conditions because you have um, noise exposed and it's either sham or exposed. And so then you can just only keep these first two colors. And then you can see how these colors match in these two arrays. I'm going to point out where that comes up later, but you just want to make sure that whatever is in colors matches ECDF colors. So goldenrod and gold for Netrin G1. And then for rungs 1, you'll probably keep gold and blue. All right. We already went over directory. Great. So I'm going to show you what this folder looks like right now. So there was only that last timestamp run. And then as we walk through, I'll show you what gets added. So boom, takes a second. Oh wait, sorry. I don't think I imported my packages. New timestamp maybe. All right. All right, so first it's going to create that directory if it doesn't exist. So you can see here, it just made a new one down to the second. So it's the same day, but it's a different hour and different, slightly different time. Okay, and now it's going to load the metadata sheets. It's going to load the sample and the image metadata sheets. All right, and now it's going to take that image metadata sheet and it's going to reduce it down to only the frequencies that we care about. So even though your imaging metadata sheet may have a lot of images on it, if we only want to look at 32 kilohertz, that's what we're going to reduce our focus to. All right, so now it's going to go through and it's going to compile all of that data from all of those images. And it's using the XYZ sheets. It's not actually using the Imaris stats files. So I'm pretty sure you've already run the conversion and you have all these files here. Mine show only presynaptic. Yours probably also have postsynaptic. And that's where indicating that you want that postsynaptic data here is so important. All right, so I'll try to kind of give a quick overview of what all of this is. So it's for every image that's in that imaging metadata sheet that matches the frequency that we selected for, it's going to get information about that image. It's going to say, okay, what was the sample number? I need to save the frequency, number of hair cells that were reconstructed. And then it's also going to take this other data that I defined up here. So I said, okay, animal ID, sex, date of birth, genotype, treatment, noise exposed. Get all of that stuff for that image, and now have it ready to go. Then it's going to determine what condition is this. And so this is the next part that you might actually need to edit, because if you only have 4 conditions, you want to get rid of the conditions here that you're not using, right? So this is where you might need to play around and update, but you can, I think it's pretty, I think that you can sort of see how it's structured, where it's condition 1, condition 2, condition 3, condition 4. And that's 1, right, 2, 3, 4. And sorry, I just noticed that I changed something. Okay, so for clarity, so I have this in a comment here just so that I have a mental note to myself that the first condition is uninjected sham. The second condition is uninjected exposed, and so on and so forth. Okay. So like I said, okay, so for Netrin G1, I think that you will be fine if you just delete the last 4. For rungs 1, I think you should be fine if you just delete the last 2. All right. Then it's going to go through the surfaces. So if you said pre and post, it's going to do this twice. If you only said pre, it's going to do it once. If you only said post, it's going to do it once. It's going to open up that XYZ spreadsheet that's associated with this image, right? So like one of these, it's going to open it up. It's going to copy over all the values, and it's going to add the metadata to those values. And I'll show you what I mean in a second, but it's going to say, okay, the XYZ, so this is what it starts with, right? Is just this stuff. But it doesn't say here what frequency this was taken at, was this a noise exposed animal, any of that. So it's going to add that information. And that's what that stuff is doing. Then it's going to analyze all of the XYZs for that image. So here it's saying, okay, I'm going to look at all of the XYZs for that image and calculate the mean volume. Then I'm going to store the mean volume in the metadata sheet for the images. So under that image name, it'll say mean volume, mean intensity, blah, blah, blah. And then we also want to calculate for that XYZ, we know what its volume is, but now that we know what the mean volume for the channel was, if we want to normalize to that, we can do that. So now we're adding information to the XYZ sheet. Okay, and then it compiles this across every single XYZ sheet for every single image, and then saves that as two new sheets, as two new spreadsheets. So we don't actually save over this data. This data stays exactly the way it is. We create new ones. And so they're going to get created and put right here. So I'll show you that in a second. This runs pretty fast. You can see it says idle now. Okay, so now it's done. And here we can see, here's that image summary. And so we have, for every image that was at 16 or 32 kilohertz, we have now how many hair cells were in the reconstruction, what was the animal ID, sex, date of birth, genotype, treatment, noise exposure, blah, 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 blah. And then you can see all of the values that got added. And since I only did pre-syn, that's all that got added, no post-synaptic. And so here's the column that we really care about is what is the average number of presynaptic surfaces per hair cell? And then what is the mean volume, mean intensity in each of the channels? Okay. Don't save it, don't change it. Then the next one is the XYZ summary. And so you can see this is huge. There's tons. Let's see, actually. So there's a lot. I think it's like 16,000, I want to say, for this one, or maybe it's 9,000. Ah, there we go. There were 9,671. So in case you ever want to tell someone how many surfaces you can reconstructed, this is an easy way to do it, or maybe you don't want to think about that. All right. But either way, point is, what I wanted to show you here is that it looks a lot like our original file because that's where we got the data. But then here's everything we added. We added what the frequency was, the surface type, condition, animal, sex, genotype, blah, 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 all that stuff. Okay, so now whenever we want to make a plot, we're using these two files. These two files have everything that we need in order to plot our data. So that's what we're going to do now. So I put a lot of examples here for the types of things that you are going to want to plot. And I tried to set it up in a way that's going to make it really easy to change the little fine details of the graph to what you want them to be. In general, you will only need to change things here that say it's set plot specific parameters. Everything below the make plot line, you shouldn't need to change. But I might be wrong because I often am. So the plot, that's just for the saving, how it saves the name so that each plot gets a unique file name. The plot type is similar because for one plot, we may want to plot it multiple ways. The region is the thing that you might want to change, although I'm pretty sure you just want to stay at 32 kilohertz, so keep that the same. Then the title is just whatever it says here. So sometimes I forget to change the title. That's where you edit it here. Then the hue is, I really don't think you're going to have to change that because I tried to set the code up in a way. That's why we have this whole crazy condition setting, is so that the colors that get plotted here are based on that condition. And so here we're plotting the average number of presynaptic surfaces per hair cell. And so what matters here, like pretty much the biggest thing that matters, I'm trying to make my window smaller so that I can show you two things at once, is that whatever you have in the Y value within those apostrophes matches letter for letter, capitalization for capitalization, whatever is in this column heading. Sorry, so I opened the wrong file. So this one is from the image summary. And here you can see it, hopefully. It says, right, average pre-syn per hair cell. So sometimes what you might want to just do is copy paste that, like copy it so that it's exactly what it's written as here, and then put that there, because that's how the code knows what value to plot, which column is going to get plotted. And then, sorry, don't save. Okay. Okay. All right. So again, X label is just whatever it says here. Y label is what it says here. And then you see how these conditions, it spans 2 lines. So uninjected on top, sham on the lowercase. That's the reason why I put this new line command in the middle of the string, is so that it would make this pretty formatting. That was it. Okay, so actually what I want to do, because I want to show you that it actually is making them, I'm going to run it again. And also, I'm going to keep this side open so that you can see what is getting created every time we run it. So that's the time-stamped folder for this run. And then here's the contents, right? Okay, so generating that first plot. Boom. Takes a second, but then it pops up and you can see there's now a PNG in that folder. Boom. Put that in your PowerPoint. All right, next one is just doing the same thing, but for the 16 kilohertz region. Okay, good. And if you decide that you don't like these y-axes, like let's say you would rather it go from 0 to 15, you just change it here and then run it again. And then, oh no, that was horrible, right? Okay, so if you plot something and you don't see anything on the graph, but you don't get an error message, sometimes it's very much because the Y limits are not, or the X limits are not set right. So that's just something to look out for. Okay, then I'm showing you an example for a different column in that same imaging metadata sheet. So here I wanted to see what's the mean volume for each image. Okay, so, oh, look, you can see there's an error. I didn't change the Y label. So it says that it's average number of presynaptic surfaces, but I know that this is actually the mean volume. So this is perfect. I can demonstrate how to fix this. So go to the Y label and say, I don't know, just making something up, right? Presynaptic, mean presynaptic volume, and the units, because we always include units, are in micron cubed. Run it again, and boom. Now that's correct. Okay. This is just showing you, if you wanted to look at the intensity, what the mean intensity is here. And I'll give you an example of what that looks like when the thing's not right. Okay, oh look, there's nothing in my graph. I know, it's because my Y limit's not right. Oh no, that's horrible. You can't actually see any differences. Forgive my cheesiness. Okay, And then this is actually supposed to be mean intensity, and those are arbitrary units. Okay. All right, so I'm not going to bore you with all of the details for every single one of them. I'm going to jump ahead to the ECDF and histogram. Okay, so when we're looking at a distribution of surfaces, so you have over 9,000 surfaces, and we want to see how are those surfaces distributed, and does the distribution of those surfaces change with certain conditions, right? An ECDF or I think it's called an estimated. So it's a cumulative distribution function, but it's, empirical. The E stands for empirical because the function is derived from your data. Whenever we have a distribution, these are really great ways of looking at them. And so you've probably seen them before. They look like this, right? Where they often have very sigmoidal types of properties. And so it's the property that we're interested here is the CTBP2 intensity. So that was in channel 1. So that's the column header there at 16 kilohertz. And on the Y is the proportion of your surfaces. And so this is what I like about these ECDFs is that it doesn't matter if the sample sizes are slightly different because it's going to normalize the results to the sample size. And so you're not going to be confused because your histogram looks bigger for one than the other. And sorry, I'll show you in the next example what exactly I mean. But so yeah, here's your ECDF where you're saying, okay, these are all of my surfaces and these are the different conditions. And here's what the distribution of those surfaces look like. And then you look at this and you're like, that's really weird. Why does that one look so weird? Here's where a histogram is actually more helpful for interpreting the data because it's hard to really see these as two distinct populations, but that's probably what's going on here. So this is where we love the motto, don't be afraid to play with the data in lots of ways, because we looked at it in one way, but now we want to look at it with the histogram, even though the histogram has flaws that I'll point out. So I'm just going to run this code. And I'm going to point out that the only thing that's changed here is that this is a histogram, and but this whole X value, the mean intensity channel 1, that part's the same. And now when we look at the histogram, we see so much more information. We can see that there are these two different populations, right? Like it looks very bimodal. And it also looks like this one population is slightly more shifted than the other ones. And what I can point out to you is why a lot of us don't like histograms is because it's hard to say, like, is this peak higher simply because there are more surfaces in that group? Or is it truly because they're all bunched up and aggregated? So not sure if that fully makes sense. We can talk about it more. But the take-home message is that you are going to want to look at your data in lots of different ways. And hopefully this Python notebook gets you started with the tools that you need in order to do that. So best of luck, Godspeed, and reach out to me if you need anything.